Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Janey Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're well. If you're in the UK, you will be in the middle of a very long weekend, which, oh my God, booze-fueled doesn't really cover it, does it? I'm kind of exhausted by the talk of alcohol just like everywhere, and the government so lovingly agreed to leave pubs open till, was it 1 a.m. or something? I mean, that should sort it all, shouldn't it, really? Just unreal the way everyone just associates celebration and time off, you know, your high days and your holidays with booze. And oh, goodness me, a finger points back at me. I used to do it. Of course I did. There was a lovely post just in our sober club from someone who just said, you know, my son has literally just realised he has to get somewhere kind of urgently, and the freedom to be able to just hop in the car when normally at this time on a bank holiday I would be, you know, sozzled to say the least. It is such freedom just to be out of this trap. I think I've probably said that a few times. So yeah, if you are, you know, if you're struggling at the moment, just stick with the plan. Don't be swayed just by, you know, a bit of bunting and some colourful goddamn, you know, pub gardens. Think about everything else. Think about the rest of your life. Think about how great you're going to feel when you've, you know, not had toxic poison. That's the reality of it, right? If it's a problem for you, if it's not a problem for you, then, you know, why are you listening to the podcast, I guess? But for those of us who don't have an off switch, then you will never do anything better for yourself than just ditching the booze. It's we just don't need it. Anyways, I've had one of those weeks where I've really been immersed in sort of listening to podcasts myself and reading stuff and just really focusing on a lot of things. It's just made me realise that I spent so many years kind of covering up anxiety and covering up the fact that I was thinking negatively. And sometimes I still do, you know, from time to time, I still get these kind of negative thoughts and worries. And I mean, I guess we all do to a certain extent. But one person that's helped me massively, I've spent some time with her, is Sue Stone. She's just such a fabulous, amazing ray of sunshine. I just absolutely love what she does. And really, it's all queen of taking control of your own thoughts. Of course, we've done a lot on podcasts about this concept, but for some reason it's really come home to me this week just how much, you know, choice we do have, how much control in inverted commas we do have. We all have this kind of concept, I think, for a long time that somebody else is running the show, that, you know, it's never about us taking responsibility. It's somebody else. It's the voice in our head. It's something that's compelling us to do this. It's what happened to us in childhood. It's the trauma, the big T or the little t, whatever. And of course, all of that stuff has a role to play. But ultimately, we can make a choice. We don't have to accept that things have to be, you know, mediocre. We can choose to actually step up and you know, just live our best lives. We really can, despite you know, whatever's happened to us in the past. Anyways, one of the podcasts I was really loving this week was Rich Roll. I don't know if you've come across Rich Roll. I love his stuff. And he was interviewing this fascinating guy. I'd love to get him on this show. Arthur Brooks was his name. He's written a book called Cracking the Code to Happiness. And it's such a great podcast. You must have a listen to it. But there were a few bits that really stood out to me. And one was where he talks about the fact that, he says the Dalai Lama says that, if you can hear a weird noise in the background, by the way, we're looking after a dog. She just decided to scratch really loudly. I hope it doesn't get worse. Anyways, so the Dalai Lama apparently says love is not a feeling. We think of love as a feeling that we that we either feel or we don't feel. But the Dalai Lama says love is a decision, not a feeling. We can choose. We can decide to love. We have agency over that. And in a world of hate, that's what we absolutely want to think about. Choosing, deciding to love. Now, we might not like There's a really big difference. We might not like, but we can still choose to love. I thought that was just fascinating. That whole concept has really got me thinking. And of course, we need to start with ourselves. Of course, we need to begin with, accepting ourselves. It may be too strong a word to say love from the get-go, but we can start with accepting ourselves. And from that place, see where that takes us. And that's really hard to do when we're drinking, really hard to do. The other thing that they discussed on this podcast was the fact that so many of us are addicted to dopamine. We've got this striving thing going on. We always want, bigger, better, faster, more. That was absolutely me for years and years and years. As humans, we do seek pleasure, but some of us are, constantly striving for the next hit. So when it's not the alcohol anymore, what will it be then? What will fill the gap then? Really, really fascinating. When you kind of get your head around some of this stuff. It's food for thought, basically. And that brings me on beautifully to the fantastic poem I read on social media. I'm sure you've seen the work of Donna Ashworth, this lovely poem called The Right Words. I won't read all of it to you, but just the first bit. She says, you can avoid alcohol, drugs, sugar, salt, wheat, dairy and carbohydrates your whole entire life. You can exercise, meditate and focus half your day on your health. But if you're swallowing your dreams, your ambitions, your regrets, your fears, your desires and your bitterness on a daily basis, you will suffer, my friend, for nothing. Aren't those words powerful? And that's just a wonderful introduction to Sue Stone. I interviewed Sue last year and I figured, let's not reinvent the wheel. I had another listen to that interview myself because I wanted to hear some of her wise words. I wanted her to remind me again that we can choose. We can wake up in the morning and choose our thoughts. So I figured, let's run this again. If you did hear the podcast last time, I know you won't mind hearing this again because you'll catch something that you didn't catch the first time. And if you haven't heard it before, well, you're gonna love it. Make sure you check out Sue's book, go to the show notes and you'll see a link there to get hold of Sue's book. And just a reminder, just before I go into the interview, just in case I forget to tell you that we do have a Sober by the Sea coming up. I think it might be sold out on June the 11th. But there's also a self-care and sobriety retreat at Champneys in Tring. That's Sunday the 26th to Monday the 27th of June. There's still spaces on that, so if you wanted to come to that, you'd be very welcome. And then I'm planning a gong bath soon in Hertfordshire and family constellations July 17th. So there's a bunch of things going on. And also just to mention for anyone who has heard me talk before about the fact that I'm now doing this work, I now have a program for people who want to be sober self-care coaches, so sobriety coaches, really focused on that sort of self-care transformation piece. So if that's of interest to you, drop me a message. I know there won't be many people listening, but if you are a therapist or a coach and it's something you want to add to your toolkit or something you've been thinking about, then I just wanted to drop it in here. Anyways, enjoy the rerun of this interview with Sue Stone. Hey, Sue, how are you? It's so lovely to chat to you. I mean, I know we're not exactly meeting in the flesh or anything, but, Zoom, next best thing, eh?
Yeah, absolutely, Janey, and good to properly connect.
Yeah, it really is lovely to chat to you. And, I read a little bit about your story and, I mean, wow, you've kind of been there to the brink, as it were, and this amazing transformation that you've had. And obviously we'll talk about the work that you do now and about your book. But just take us back then and tell, for anyone who hasn't read your incredible path to where you are now, tell us a bit about what happened.
Oh, yeah, it was a very, very, very real experience and story that I was hugely embarrassed about all those years ago, just how bad my life had got. And I'd split up with my husband, and I had a belief at the time that once one thing went wrong, a load of other things would go wrong. And I had no idea what a self-fulfilling prophecy that was actually going to be. And things literally did go from bad to worse. And I was, oh, trust me, I was doing it all wrong. I was getting credit cards to fund loans and loans to fund mortgages, desperately trying to keep things going, and had a car I couldn't afford, and, you know, on high finance and all this sort of thing. And it was all just a built up of my married life of just trying to keep things going and then getting left with all the debt once we actually split up. So it was a very dramatic, fearful time of my life. And
I mean, didn't you end up kind of down to your last tenner with
yeah, that's what I was
children
say.
to look after? Yeah.
That was literally the turning point, when one day I realized I was maxed out on every single bank account I had, the credit cards, the loans, and I couldn't get my hands on a single penny. And I raced to my bag and I had £10, and
wow.
That was it. That was absolutely the case. No idea where the next penny was coming from, and 3 young children to feed, and the bank about to repossess my home. So yeah, it was a bit of a scary time. I was consumed with fear and desperation.
Just out of interest, do you still see, you know, is that as prevalent now, do you think, for women who find themselves just sort of maxing out credit cards? Do you think there's as much of that goes on?
I don't know now, but in those days, I think, yeah, getting credit cards and things. But I mean, we all did it. It was like trying to just keep things going. My ex-husband was doing it. I was doing it. I guess I hoped things were going to get better. And it was all I knew what to do, and I was just using credit cards to survive. But it was my wake-up call. I know lots of people that live off credit cards, and I'm not going to judge anyone for that, because I've been, done it all. But I've never, obviously that was part of my big learning, is you get to the breakdown before you have the breakthrough. And I woke up and started researching ways to change my life.
Yeah. So how did you get out of that? How did you get out of the funk then?
Well, it was obviously the following day. I remember waking up, having a little cry and thinking, oh my God, how my life come to this? And thinking, but I knew at some level, I thought, right, Sue Stone, if you don't do something to help yourself, no one's going to do it for you. And I had to take some very practical steps. Obviously, I was speaking to all my creditors anyway. I wasn't ignoring them all. I had to get rid of my car, my very expensive car, which was on finance that I couldn't afford. And my sister gave me £200, and I bought a little A-registered Mazda. It was this green metallic wrap Mazda. I didn't even think you could buy a car that worked for £200. Yeah, but it had electric windows and automatic. It was amazing, and it was a hugely humbling and liberating experience. So I had to take lots of practical steps and talk to people. But my main focus was starting to realize and understand the power of our thoughts. I started studying quantum physics and all this sort of thing, and neuroscience, and just realizing that we get more of what we focus on in life. And I realized I was focusing on all the things I didn't want, and all the things I was fearing, and all the things I was worrying about. And at some level, our brain kind of filters that out. And the laws of the universe come into play as well. And it was that making it my mission to work on myself, to work on my thinking, and start focusing on where I wanted to get to, not where I didn't. I mean, really, that was it, apart from the practical steps. And then go through that transition of personal change. We have to take responsibility, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can only begin to imagine that there'll be people listening to this who've had, a not dissimilar experience across lockdown, when everything sort of locked up, and people, everything kind of closed in on, certainly even some people I know who found themselves in a position where they're a single mum, they're on the 3rd or 4th floor or whatever. So there's not even a garden for their kids. They're trying to home educate and work. There's not enough money. I mean, and they're not getting any connection. You can kind of understand why people just turn to booze, and why that seems like the answer, is the only bit of stability in their life, can't you, really?
I've got to be honest, at the time I was horribly embarrassed, but when I had my last £10, I remember thinking, okay, I've got to buy sausages and potatoes for the kids or something cheap to feed the kids. I had to put a few pounds worth of petrol in the car. But my overriding desire was, I've got to make sure I've got enough money for a cheap bottle of wine. And as I say, I was horribly embarrassed about that at the time. But then it was actually, it was a Daily Express journalist many, many years ago said, so if you could have the courage to share that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you'll find so many people can relate to it. And it helped numb the pain. I mean, it really did. So I have been, talking to a lot of people through the lockdown, anyone that's reached out to me, because it felt like my own mini lockdown all those years ago. And the mental health impacts, the financial impacts, it's been huge on people. So I have been talking to a lot of people. Doing my best to help them and give them some positivity to keep going.
And you know, as you say in your book, and as you've already just mentioned, it's a real game changer when you can grasp that, you know, you can have some control back over your thoughts. And you know, why isn't this stuff taught in schools? That's what always freaks me out. Why the hell aren't we learning that, you know, instead of the algebra that I'll never use? Wouldn't it be different if everyone, you know, was helped to understand that, okay, you've got a little voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, you know, an inner critic or whatever, but you can actually take back some control.
I spot on, Janey. I couldn't agree with you more. How many people over the years since I've been doing this, and it only evolved me doing what I do, was because so many people, friends, once I, should we say, took control of my thoughts and my thinking, got my inner world right, my outer world obviously started to affect, take place, and I felt inner peace again. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be happy. So. And friends said, oh, you helped me see life in a different way. And of course, since then, and that's in 2005, I literally came out, I bought the domain name suestone.com and thought, what do I do next? You know, I had no idea, but the thought of helping empower people to be happy and have inner peace. So the number of people over the years have said, oh, this should be taught in schools, which I'm totally agreeing with you. But I think my main focus has been to keep things simple for people, because when you understand why and how this stuff works and why it is so important to be positive at every level, it makes it so obvious why we should change our thinking. And it's not just about being positive and having lots of trauma behind, you know, it's dealing with the trauma and the dis-ease, of course. And we talk a lot about things that people can do, transformational tools to help. But I totally agree with you. I've made it a bit of a mission to spread the message to people, because if I can change my world around at every level, anyone can. I'm a single mum with 3 kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So your book, The Power Within You Now, rocket fuel for your mind, body and soul. I love that. Strap line. It's great. A simple guide to create the life you love. So, you know, what do you mean by that expression then, rocket fuel?
Well, it came to me actually, rocket fuel for your mind, body and soul. Woohoo. It came to me when I was walking across the back fields, and I just thought it's about giving fuel, you know, rocket fuel. We imagine this sort of real propelling your life into its greatness, and we can all do that, but we've got to work on our mind, our body and our soul really at every level. So I just explained through my book Quantum Physics Made Simple, which most people go, oh, what's that? But it's how we create our reality with our thoughts and our emotions. Neuroscience Made Simple, when we can very simply, people think, oh, it's in the genes, I'm hardwired that way. No, we're not. We now know we can create new neural pathways in our brain, and how we can do that. And it is very exciting. Anything is possible if we start to believe it, and we can. It is about propelling, or, you know, giving yourself the rocket fuel to propel yourself into your greatness.
Yeah, absolutely.
To whatever, but it just came to me.
I like the fact that, you know, you mentioned you studied quantum physics and stuff, because, you know, obviously when we talk in this kind of terms, as it were, you know, there are people who'll be thinking, oh, for God's sake, you know, it's all way too woo-woo, you know, and of course I can't manifest that I will, you know, have £1 million or whatever I want to manifest. It's just absolute nonsense. But actually this stuff is rooted in science, isn't it?
It is, and that's what I love, is that I've got this, it's actually ancient wisdom that's been around since the beginning of time. Visualize it, feel it, see it, start to believe it, and take the inspired action towards your goals. Of course, quantum physics now backs up. And of course, as the years have gone by, we've now got the equipment to measure the electromagnetic waves and how our heart is so much more powerful than our brain and things. So it's the emotion behind the thoughts that we're having is the energy emotion. So when people say, oh, like you've just said, it's woo-woo fluffy stuff, I said, actually, no, it's not. It's worth putting, and science now has proven that everything is energy. And the other thing, just talk about woo-woo, which I love this, is that they've now proven that every single cell, for want of a better word, in our universe is connected to every single other one. They've proven that mathematically. So when people say we're all connected, we're all one, I used to think that was completely woo-woo, but actually it's true. We are all connected. And that's where the vibrational resonance comes in. Two things in vibrational resonance with each other are drawn together, that like attracts like and type thing, you know,
absolutely
call it the law of attraction these days. But and the indicator of the vibration you're on is the way you're feeling. So if we're feeling really fearful and low and desperate, unfortunately, vibrationally, we tend to draw to ourselves more things on that vibration. So it's so important to just feel gratitude for what is good in your life rather than what we feel is what's lacking. And those were the simple steps I took, is focusing on the gratitude for the good rather than, even though it felt like there wasn't much to be grateful for, that was my deliberate thing. This moment is all I've got. I might as well be grateful for the good in my life, not
it's a good starting point, isn't it, focusing on the blessings, because there's always something, as you say, that we do have, and it is all about how we react, isn't it? Because, you know, an experience for one person might be completely different, you know, for another. I can't remember which guest I was interviewing, but we were having a whole conversation about Viktor Frankl's book, One Man's Search for Meaning, and you know, those kind of books are just you know, you read those kind of books and you think, oh my goodness, I could never be like that. I could never, you know, cope if things were bad. But it is all about how you sort out, you know, what's going on in your head, as you say. I love some of the chapters in the book. You talk about your first chapter is never give up on your dreams. Why do we do that, do you think? Do you think we all start off having kind of dreams and stuff we want, and then over time it just kind of gets squished?
I think I've seen this a lot, that you say, look at the children at school and they say, what do you want to be when you're older? And they want to be an astronaut, they want to be this, they want to be that. And then ask that same kid at 14 and, no, I don't know what I want to be, because I've seen it all the time. Parents say, you'll never achieve if you don't do this. And or even teachers, dare I say, you're never going to make it in life if you carry on the way you are. And I know they're maybe trying to do it for the right reasons, but if people hear it enough that they're not good enough and they'll never achieve, unfortunately, that's what we absorb as a belief, and it's
absolutely.
in our consciousness.
Yeah.
So
do you think it's a good idea then to, sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, it's about having patience, perseverance, just keeping going in life, one day at a time, doing something, one action step towards achieving your goals. But also my main focus, and has been for a long time, is I think I've only got the now, so I might as well really focus on being the best version of me in the now, because this is the only moment we've got. And that was absolutely truly one of my biggest breakthroughs, was to realize that this moment right now, whatever's going on out there, why do I want to think about thoughts that make me miserable? Because this is the only moment I've got.
I loved it when someone reminded me of that, and I can't remember who initially, you probably know who wrote the book and did the thesis, but this concept that actually, a negative thought will only last about 90 seconds. And then you've actually got to recreate the next shit thought. So technically you can literally focus on, do you know what? Okay, so I've just been in that place of fear or panic or worry or angst. But you know what? I'm going to choose a different thought now. But you have to be able to put the pause in and remember to choose the positivity.
Yeah, and that is absolutely spot on. I always say you've got to learn to convert the inner critic to be your inner coach. And I used to be the expert at doing it all wrong. If something would trigger me, like a bill would turn up, and then of course, my stomach would go. My head, the inner critic would kick in. And if I wasn't careful, before I knew it, I would have turned that into the most dramatic scene in my head of, I'm going to be homeless. How am I ever going to survive? I'm never going to be able to feed my children. And before you know it, we have created this incredible drama in our minds. And you feel even worse. And so I bring in the inner critic and think, actually, I acknowledge you, negative thought, but I'm not going to feed you right now, because right now I don't know how I'm going to pay that bill. But all I know is I'm now going to focus on seeing the solution. I'm going to focus on all the ways money can turn up in my life, and I'm going to be, should we say, solution conscious, not problem conscious. But as you quite rightly say, you've got to be living consciously and in enough awareness that you nip it in the bud before you turn it into the drama.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a few of your top tips then for somebody who is quite new to this, because I find that a lot of people, when they ditch they've probably been drinking for years and years and years, and it's been their main focus. And if they're anything like me, they would have thought that all this stuff, it's all very well and good, but it doesn't affect me. It's not about me, because poor old me. But if they are just kind of finding that they're emerging from perhaps drinking for years and years, and things are starting to make a little bit more sense, but they're in the really early stages of knowing how to do this stuff, what would be your kind of tips for starting out?
Don't forget, I still like my wine, and I still drink my wine. But I would just point that out. It's not that I've stopped drinking. I haven't, but I don't drink for negative reasons. I still and have done. But I think whatever's going on in our life is be really mindful of what language we use, because people say, I'm bored, I'm depressed, I'm desperate. Every thought we think, every word we speak affects us at the quantum level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is also heard by every cell in our body. So
and we tell ourselves stories, don't we? It's really true. And the language we use. I had a client the other day, actually, who just kept saying to me, well, I've done all the work. I've read all the books. I've done all the courses, but I can't make it stick. And I don't know how many times she told me that. It has become her story, that she knows it all, but she can't make it stick. That was her story.
One of my favorite phrases, it's no point knowing what to do. You've got to do what you know, and apply this stuff into your life. And it does take effort. We do. I think the number one starting point, we've got to take 100% responsibility and want to change.
Yeah.
I would say to people, never force anyone to come and see me. You've got to be ready to want to take responsibility and realize anything is possible. But if we want to be good at anything, we've got to practice and train.
Yeah.
And this includes in our mind. And repetition sounds boring, but that's how we learn new things. I try and say to people, just see it, that you've got into the habit of thinking negatively. And it's just taking, I try and explain it all, but even things like just waking up in the morning, deliberately focus on the things you've got to be grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to ask you about morning routine, actually, because I do think that, when everything feels very negative, you nearly always find that people, if they're anything like I used to be, kind of crawl out of bed, and immediately the very first thoughts are, oh, everything's crap and I didn't sleep very well, or I'm hungover, or oh, this is going to be awful and that's going to be awful, and then you reach immediately for your phone or a computer, and then you're straight into everyone else's stuff. And in the current climate, if you switch on mainstream media, for God's sake, you're immediately in a place of absolute fear. So you can see why that's not going to be a great start to the day, right?
Yeah, you've got to, if we carry on doing this, what do you ever read any of Joe Dispenza's stuff, because of course I mentioned in my book he's a great guy. He said, before you know it, your familiar past will be your predictable future, because you just keep doing the same old things. So we've got to start to do lots of little tiny steps in the now, lots of different tiny, changing a habit and doing something different. Don't just tiny steps. If we go into overwhelm, we don't do anything different, because I think I'm never going to achieve that. But I think when we're in that sleepy state in the morning is when we're in what we call alpha brainwave state, and that is when the door is open to the subconscious mind. And that's a really powerful time to not go like I used to think, oh my God, what's today going to bring? It's going to be hell. To think, okay, I'd have little post-it notes by my bedside and just said, be grateful, think love, sort of thing. So I would deliberately plant thoughts of love for my children, even simple things like being snuggled up in my bed and warm, because my fear was I was going to be homeless, but I was not actually homeless. I've since met people that have actually been homeless. So, there's always someone worse off. The other thing, one little phrase right at the start that helped me so much was, my thoughts create my future. Now that was all those years back, long before I knew the power of this stuff. But my thoughts create my future. And I thought, wow, all I'm thinking about is, I'm visualizing is I'm going to be homeless. And I visualize myself on the side of the roads with my kids. So whatever it is, whatever is going on in anyone's life right now, if we've got to start to deliberately visualize what we want, not what we don't want. As Albert Einstein said, our imagination is our preview of life's coming attractions.
I love that phrase. I really do. Since training in NLP, there was one little, I know you've trained in NLP probably years.
I haven't actually. I haven't done a single qualification in any of this.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you know the technique anyway. But for me, when I trained in NLP, one of the little techniques that made such a difference for me, such a little thing, and I share it with sort of all my clients, is what they call a clean setup, and it's just exactly that, really, that particularly when you wake up, it's a great time to do it, or just before a meeting or before anything important, and you actually just ask yourself, what do I want from this? What do I want from this day? How do I want this day to be? Or how do I want this meeting to go? Or whatever it is, question one. But question two is the really important one, which is, how do I have to be for that to happen? So it's that taking responsibility piece, because I used to do the what do I want piece, but I didn't used to do the how do I have to be for that to happen. But then I just get pissed off that said thing that I wanted hadn't come to fruition, because I hadn't done the second one, which is how do I have to be? And then it really makes you think, well, actually, you know what? If I really want that, I'm going to have to be whatever, focused, positive, etc. And then the third question, just to finish off this exercise, in case NLP practitioners are listening and thinking she hasn't done it all, is you ask yourself, okay, what support and resources do I need in order to be that way, in order for that to happen? So yeah, it's great, isn't it, to have that those few minutes in the morning to yourself before you dive into the mayhem, really.
Another little one I must just share, Janey, because obviously when I start to talk, of course, we go back into that time, and it brings back, these are things I don't necessarily need to do anymore. I mean, I'm naturally programmed now and hardwired to be grateful. That's where I've been working for many years. But the other thing I learned off Zig Ziglar, he's passed away now, one of the traditional old American personal development guys. He had a book called See You at the Top. And what he would do, and I absolutely did it, if I'd wake up, even once I'd done a bit of gratitude, if I'd sit on the edge of my bed and still feel, oh God, having a moment of feeling a bit sorry for myself, I'd think, come on, and I'd sit on the edge of my bed. I wrote about this one in my first book, which is Love Life, Live Life, and I would clap my hands and go, goody, 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 what exciting things has the universe in store for me today?
Yeah, I love it.
And do you know what? I it shifted my energy straight away. I'd laugh at myself. The number of people that have said to me, "Oh, if I'm having a bad day, I do my goody,"
Yeah.
But it shifts your vibration.
It's just that childlike quality, isn't it, really, of just being able to be playful, I think, really, which so many of us have completely forgotten how to be playful.
I agree. And the other thing, don't forget, abundance, bringing abundance of whatever, health, wealth, love into your life, having that joyful, playful energy is a short, and an energy of gratitude is a surefire way to bring, this sort of thing in. But it's remembering one little key phrase: the way I feel in every moment is what I'm creating.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people, they know this stuff. They know what to do. They might have an hour in the morning of maybe meditating, walking out in nature, writing their goals down, a really good morning practice. But the rest of the day, they get caught up in the fear and the worry and the desperation. And of course, our predominant energy through the day and the instructions we're sending our subconscious mind and the universe are chaotic and fearful. And then, of course, that feeling is what we're drawing to us. So it really is a moment by moment awareness. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what am I saying?
Yeah. And then what about when people really, absolutely. But what about when people really do hit that, that anxiety, which happens sometimes, of course, what would be your tips then? I know in the book you talk about the importance of, breathing exercises. I had a great podcast guest on with breathing tips, but techniques, but I do think that's key, because although we all breathe, of course, we actually forget to breathe properly, right?
Yeah, breathing, breath work. The other one I love, emotional freedom technique. I don't know if you've ever come across that.
Yeah, I'm trained in EFT.
Yeah, that really helped me. All I can ever do is share what's helped me, myself,
absolutely.
and that's what I do, share from my own experience. And there were days where I'd feel really angry, upset and fearful, because of course when you start working on yourself and living consciously, there is a transition, of course there is. And so remembering to use the tools is crucial. So tapping really does help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what do people get from the book then? Just give us a little rundown of what's in it.
Oh, little rundown. So we've got, like I said, quantum physics. People might go, no, that sounds really boring, but I try and explain it in such a way that people understand it. Quantum physics, neuroscience. I've done a whole chapter on manifesting abundance, chapter on self-transformational tools that I find really powerful and useful. I do a whole chapter on why people don't get the results they desire, because I've observed that, the fine tuning. But also just the daily, what I call the daily disciplines of what to apply into your life to make it a way of living. That discipline sounds like it's hard work, but it isn't. Everyone says to me, "Sue, you make it simple." I think because I'm not trained in any of this. All I've done is share what I did for myself. And it's been a remarkable result. And of course, for all these years, I just share, and people go, "Oh," I always say to people, "I can hand you the tools, but you've got to pick them up and use them." And then, anything's possible.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I could chat to you for hours, Sue, but we'll have you back another time. So anyways, the book is great. The Power Within You Now, Rocket Fuel for Your Mind, Body and Soul. Do you want to give us your website then for anyone who wants to find out more about your work?
Thanks so much for having me on, Janey. It's lovely to have a chat. My website is suestone.com. And I also have the Sue Stone Foundation, where I have people that have joined my team. I do a 2-day training to be part of my foundation. So we're a collective group of people doing our bit to help where we can in the world.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it, Sue. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sue. And check out the show notes for the info about Sue's book. and the work that she does, and just follow some of those tips. A lot of this stuff I've been doing for years, but still I slip back into old habits. And I'm guessing, there'll be some people listening who are exactly the same. We do need, as Sue says, to become hardwired into these practices, hardwired into choosing our thoughts. And when the negative thoughts creep in, just replace with a positive thought. We can actually take back control, and it's super powerful when we do. When we focus on the positive. One thing that I completely forgot to say at the beginning was that I just got to mention this, because if anyone has been reading the media, looking at the media lately, which I don't recommend doing too much of, by the way, if you want to keep your thoughts positive. There was that piece today in the press, on Thursday in the press, and the title was something like, "Heavy drinkers are happier, healthier as they age, happier and healthier as they age." I mean, seriously, I nearly choked on the cornflakes. I mean, you have to be kidding me. I read this article with honestly, actual disbelief. That's exactly the kind of article that kept me completely stuck. This study of people over 60, and they're saying that despite drinking, in inverted commas, potentially unhealthy quantities, God knows what they mean by that, given that everyone fibs about how much they drink anyway, they reported better health and happiness, overall less pain, and easier, more mobile, effectively. I just don't buy that. Perhaps the people that they interviewed, and it was a very small number, perhaps they were people who were very conscious of their health and well-being. Perhaps they were people who were very social, who were having a good life, and who were doing okay despite drinking too much. It wouldn't be because of it, it would be despite it. I mean, if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I was happy and healthy, of course I would have said yes. I mean, I was relatively healthy. Thank God I took the right supplements so the demon booze didn't get to me quite as bad as it might have done had I not been supporting myself with good supplements. And yes, of course I was happy on the surface. Nobody knew what was going on at 3 a.m. That was literally between me and my conscience. That voice at 3 a.m. that said, "This is not okay. This is everything but okay. It's not who you are. It's not authentic. You cannot keep banging on about optimum health and well-being, holistic living, spirituality, and be caning the booze like this. It is not okay." But of course that didn't last very long. And then I was back into the next day, and the wine witch told me to knock back copious amounts of Sauvignon again. Nobody knows what's really going on. So irresponsible. Such a really annoying article, because it would have kept me stuck. I know it would have done. And, I'd love to debate that piece with whoever the author is. And then I saw a piece by Richie Allen who said, who quoted the article and then said at the end, "I shall continue to Bacardi the bejesus out of myself, safe in the knowledge that it's doing me a world of good," or something like that. I mean, clever line. Exactly what I would have written. Exactly. I would have just loved that article. Jumped on it, quoted it, promoted it, as I quaffed my booze. Oh, it's just actually sad, honestly. It's sad. Eventually, you realise the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. It really isn't. Just go on about it as long as you like. But the reality is, it's toxic. It's the most harmful drug, for God's sake, when you take into account everything. I mean, they did say in the article, to be fair, it is only observational and may not be a causal link. You're too right. No shit, Sherlock. Anyways, I just thought I'd mention that in case you saw that piece today and it's rocked you straight back into thinking, there you go, you see, I may as well finish off the bank holiday weekend with, copious amounts of booze, because, hey, one won't hurt. Well, we've all been there, haven't we? Back down that slippery slope. Anyways, as always, if you do want support, then you know where to find me. Message me, tell me if you're doing this, share it with someone. Of course, I'd love it if you join the Sober Club. The support there, the inspiration there, the fun we have there is amazing. And we have people who are day one and people who've been sober for many years, because it's all about the what's next. It's never just about not drinking, is it? It's always about the what's next. So, of course, I'd love it if you wanted to join the Sober Club. It's thesoberclub.com. There is a small monthly fee, and of course, I will tell you it's well worth it. It really is. But if joining the Sober Club is not for you, but you really enjoy the podcast, then there is now a Buy Me a Coffee. If I could meet you in person, that would be even better. I'll have a flat white. But if you want to do it virtually and make a little donation for the podcast, it would be hugely appreciated. You just go to buymeacoffee.com/Janey Lee Grace. I think that's how you do it. Anyways, I hope you have a great bank holiday weekend. Don't forget, you can keep the ritual, change the ingredients. Of course you can have a nice drink. Of course you can go to a party. Of course you can have fun, just without the booze, right? Masses of recommendations. If you want a recommendation, just message me. I'll give you a recommendation for whatever drink you usually drink. I'll find you a replacement, an alternative that doesn't contain booze. Carry on doing what you're doing and stay connected. Have yourself a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review. And if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.